the Bogosity podcast, early and ad-free. Become a subscriber at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Use the links at donate.bogosity.tv.
Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of October 5, 2025, the podcast that went in circles until it dropped dead. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's depurate the news of the bogus. And it's yet another example of why gun buybacks are just silly. This one's in Canada, which, building on the failure of so many others, is buying back dangerous weapons to keep them from circulation so they won't be used by dangerous criminals. Of course, they don't work, and it's mostly the law-abiding to give theirs up. In the past, we've seen people making a profit off of buybacks. They might buy $30 worth of hardware store supplies to make a slam-fire shotgun, or they might buy old junk guns that are rusted up or otherwise no good. Just buy or make them cheap, then sell them to the government. This one has been going on for 5 years and hasn't met a single one of its targets. Canada's Firearms Compensation Program, which began in May 2020, estimates there are some 15,000 guns held by businesses and upwards of 175,000 privately held guns that aren't being collected. And it's highly doubtful that that'll change before the close of the program on October 30. It was supposed to be a straightforward gun cleanup, but as is the case with government, it ended up being anything but that. Public Services and Procurement Canada was put in charge of logistics, aided by the RCMP to ensure weapons weren't mishandled. They still don't have a case management platform meant to track claims, and contract approvals have dragged on for months. Although a $4.5 million contract was signed to begin the business phase, infrastructure they need to actually handle hundreds of thousands of privately owned firearms is only now starting to take shape. But it isn't just bureaucracy. Compliance is low to non-existent. Aside from all the people who just don't know that the program exists, most Canadian gun owners don't believe the program will address the real problem. Gun crime in Canada is closely tied into gang smuggling across the border, not the ones locked in the safes of law-abiding gun owners. Polls show that some 60% of Canadians would rather the government focus on smuggling instead of targeting licensed gun owners, especially in rural areas like Alberta, where the buyback is called a gong show, a grotesque display of government overreach that doesn't even work. And for gun owners, the buyback represents a loss of valuable property. It doesn't help that the government keeps expanding the list of prohibited models, most recently in March 2025, and every time it does, the entire program has to be restructured, causing even more delays. The current amnesty window closes on the 30th, but with the way the program is going, with the delays not being the fault of gun owners, they may have to extend that, which would only fuel more skepticism of the program. So after 5 years, the Canadian government has collected almost nothing, contracts are delayed, the tracking system doesn't work, and compliance is laughably low. It was supposed to make streets safer, but instead, it's just resulted in far more Canadians distrusting the government, which must mean the program has done something good after all.
Presenting the greatest game this side of Yugoth. You are H.P. Lovecraft's cat, and your name is Nick. Right, we can't say that on a podcast. Well, anyway, that's the point. Your name is a joke to him. So now, you are out for revenge. Using the Necronomicon, you come to the present day to buy a gun to go vanquish him once and for all. But the Necronomicon is devious, and it summoned Lovecraft's monsters as well. Now, in a crumbling world, you must fight for the revenge you seek. Fight monsters, gain allies, buy guns and armor for yourself and your team. Defeat the bosses of each level. Then get your revenge against Lovecraft himself. Play Lovecraft's cat. The link is at cat.bogosity.tv. Yeah, we're doing cat.bogosity.tv, not that other one. What, you want me to get kicked off the internet or something?
So, it looks like the federal government has shut down. Oh, if only that were true, am I right? So, the narrative in the news media is that the Democrats are trying to stop the Republicans from shutting down Obamacare. Oh, if only they were, am I right? But no, we're talking about a temporary extension of healthcare subsidies that were only meant to get us through COVID, passed as part of the American Rescue Plan in March 2021 and extended to the end of 2025 by the Inflation Reduction Act. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that keeping these subsidies going would cost $340 billion a year. That's basically $1,000 from every man, woman, and child in the country. Seriously, just give us the $1,000. We'll take it from there. What's really silly is that it's really only the high-income earners who'd see the subsidy go away, with the lowest incomes unaffected. So the Republicans weren't playing ball. They're not even against the subsidies per se. Some just wanted to have a debate over the amounts, and others wanted to fund the government first and debate the subsidies afterward. So now we have the same old rhetoric. Democrats screech that Republicans want to take away their health care, while Republicans screech that Democrats want to give free health care to illegal immigrants. Michael Cannon, Director of Health Policy Studies at the Cato Institute, says that these positions shouldn't surprise anybody, even when it's the elimination of a subsidy that was only supposed to be for a few years anyway. Quote, "The fact that the subsidies create a phony crisis every couple of years when they expire, from a political perspective, is a feature, not a bug. This is how spending grows." Or as Milton Friedman said, "Nothing's more permanent than a temporary government program." Really, these subsidies do nothing more than paper over the increasing costs of Obamacare. While supposedly cutting costs, what's really happened is that premiums in general have gone up, especially for healthier people. According to Professor Gay Bai of Johns Hopkins University, since the Affordable Care Act went into effect in 2014, healthcare premiums have gone up 80%, more than twice the rate of inflation. As Cannon said, quote, "Everything in U.S. healthcare is a fiscal illusion. They want to keep hiding the cost of Obamacare's health insurance regulations." And I just want to remind everyone of a video I made before Obamacare passed called How to Fix Healthcare Without Spending a Dime. Search my channel for it. Obamacare was never necessary or even a good idea. To anyone other than Obama's healthcare cronies, that is.
If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv.
While RFK Jr. is being stupid and blaming Tylenol of all things, real scientific researchers are unlocking more of the mysteries of why autism exists. Yes, autism is nothing new and has been around ever since humans have been intelligent. And that's the point, according to a new study published in Molecular Biology and Evolution. The authors looked at what are called layer 2/3 intratelencephalic neurons, which are the most common type of neuron in the human neocortex, and compared it to our nearest relatives. It's always been an open question just how we got this runaway intelligence, much more than can be explained simply by outcompeting other species. The authors found that these neurons evolved exceptionally quickly in our lineage compared to other apes. It's based on the idea that certain things in biology tend to be more protected by evolution, because mistakes in those things end up being more harmful and therefore quickly selected out. The authors wondered if this same rule applies to neurons. Do the most common neuron types evolve more slowly? So they looked at giant databases of single-cell RNA sequencing, which shows you which genes are turned on in different types of neurons. And they found that, yes, rare neurons evolve faster, common neurons are more stable. But these L23IT neurons don't follow this pattern. They changed way faster than expected in humans, which is weird. What they found is that in humans, the variations of these genes that are linked to autism are expressed more in apes than in humans. In humans, these genes are downregulated. The study found, quote, surprisingly, this accelerated evolution was accompanied by the dramatic downregulation of autism-associated genes, which was likely driven by polygenic positive selection specific to the human lineage. In particular, 233 genes strongly linked to autism show reduced activity in humans compared to chimpanzees. Why would that matter? Take, for example, the SHANK3 gene. It's one of the genes that helps neurons build strong, stable synapses. If your SHANK3 genes are highly expressed, you make robust, stable, and precise synapses. But in humans, SHANK3 is expressed at a lower level. That means that synapses can be more dynamic, meaning they're easier to form, mold, prune, and remodel, vastly increasing our intelligence by allowing us to adapt faster and learn more complex tasks such as language. But with that increased dynamism comes fragility. Just as those synapses are easier to change, they become easier to break as well. In that case, instead of being flexible but functional, it becomes unstable. In chimpanzees, that risk is low because their higher baseline expression means they're not going to notice much of a difference. But in humans, that same increased flexibility that leads to our higher intelligence means we're closer to the precipice, and so we're more vulnerable when those genes get changed. We're at risk of the expression going too low, disrupting the communication between neurons and leading to autistic traits. The pattern in these changes in genes is exactly what you'd expect from natural selection and not at all what you'd expect from random chance. Add to that the fact that autism-linked genes show no increase in harmful mutations compared to chimpanzees, and the fact that the activity of these genes is less variable in humans, and that indicates a strong evolutionary pressure to select for these genes. The pattern holds across humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, macaques, marmosets, and mice across tens of millions of years of evolutionary divergence. We have prices to pay for our intelligence. Our brains are only marginally bigger than other apes when you consider how insanely more intelligent we are. The advantages have to do with brain structures and neuroplasticity. Disadvantages include things like a slower brain development after birth. And it looks like autism is another price we have to pay. Autism isn't a single disorder due to a single catastrophic mutation or bad gene, but a spectrum that results from all sorts of genetic factors that span the entire mammalian brain. It's interesting to compare this to the idea that a certain number of autistic people in a population can add to its survivability. Autistic people are hyper-focused with immense attention to detail, novel problem-solving abilities, and skill diversity. They also have a high pain threshold and are less risk-averse, and to a Paleolithic society, that makes them pretty badass. It may be that having 1 to 2% of your population on the spectrum gives you advantages that outweigh the costs of everyone else having to compensate for their disability. So autism wasn't just genetic drift or a neural mishap in humans. It was the result of positive selection, deliberately turning down the expression of these genes to make our brain wiring more flexible and powerful, which massively boosted our intelligence, learning, and cognition. But that also made us closer to a tipping point, where additional genetic hits can push our system too far and into the autism spectrum. The very things that made us smarter are what made autism more prevalent. Not vaccines or Tylenol or whatever. It's not a glitch. It's fundamental to who we are as a species.
I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv.
And now it's time to hypersaturate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. Back in April of 2024, we covered the lawsuit the owners of Indian Point Nuclear Plant filed against the state of New York over basically political bullying by Governor Kathy Hochul and AG Letitia James. After forcing the plant to shut down for no good reason, they then deliberately put the plant in an impossible position, leaving them with no way to get rid of the wastewater. The water used as a direct neuron moderator in a nuclear reactor ends up with a higher than normal amount of tritium, which is a hydrogen atom with 2 neutrons. The legislature, the governor, and the AG all fearmongered and attempted to cause panic in the public by screeching about radioactive water and how it was going to pollute the Hudson Bay. They even went so far as to call it the Save the Hudson Bill. One thing they didn't tell you, there has never been a single case of a human death or illness due to water with this higher level of tritium. Something else they didn't tell you, more tritium is created every day in the Hudson Bay by cosmic rays than would be released by all of New York's nuclear reactors combined, Indian Point included. Tritium has a half-life of about 12.3 years, so power plants store the tritium in tanks for about that long, meaning that once they release the wastewater, it only contains half the tritium there was initially. But that also means that, even after a plant is shut down, it'll have to keep releasing the water for a few decades. Now, Holtec, a company specializing in dismantling nuclear power plants that now owns Indian Point, have won their lawsuit against the state. U.S. District Judge Kenneth Carras agreed with Holtec that New York way overstepped their bounds, since legally, radiological discharge is the sole purview of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The NRC imposes a total annual limit of 3 millirem, but the tritium released won't come anywhere near that amount. Citing the Supremacy Clause, Judge Carras ruled, foreclosing disposal of tritiated water via the Hudson River requires Holtec to investigate alternative methods of disposal, choose one, ensure compliance with NRC regulations, and then execute on its choice. The chain of events that the discharge statute necessarily sets off clearly has a direct and substantial effect on those operating nuclear facilities. Accordingly, the court finds that the discharge statute is preempted. Too bad he couldn't find that they were being complete morons. Oh well, that's what this podcast is for. It's not just about the stupid Hudson Law. They basically turned off a quarter of New York City's power, and it was almost all clean, safe nuclear energy. Ever since then, New York has had to burn more fossil fuel to make up for the loss, as always happens when idiot politicians shut down nuclear plants. They just never learn. So all of that makes New York this week's biggest Bogon emitter.
Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at Bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins.
And now let's vociferationalificationify this week's
Idiot Extraordinaire.
The Curl Project is finding out what a lot of rational people have known all along about AI, and the complaints the anti-AI movement has that it doesn't live up to its hype. The problem isn't AI, it's shoddy AI. AI is a tool, and like all good tools, they work as long as human beings use them wisely. Curl is an open source project used to upload and download files over HTTP and other protocols, and is used by billions of people who don't even realize it and haven't even heard of it. That's because it's used in scripts that operate in cars, TVs, routers, printers, cell phones, tablets, medical devices, gaming consoles, media players, all sorts of things. Basically, if you're on the internet, you use curl in some way. Sadly, as project maintainer Daniel Stenberg has had to point out, the project has been flooded with bogus bug reports generated by AI models. He said that only 5% of the submissions have turned out to be genuine vulnerabilities, a massive decrease from previous years. He posted, "We now ban every reporter instantly who submits reports we deem AI slop. A threshold has been reached. We are effectively being DDoSed. If we could, we would charge them for this waste of our time." It's actually making him reconsider the project's bug bounty program. But the problem was never the technology, but the people using it. A counterpoint is Joshua Rogers, a Polish security researcher who was praised by Stenberg for, quote, "actually truly awesome findings." Those findings were found with the assistance of LLMs. Quote, "In my view, this list of issues achieved with the help of AI tooling shows that AI can be used for good. Powerful tools in the hand of a clever human is certainly a good combination." Turns out, AI is only slop when people use it sloppily. Of course, another complaint is that AI wastes electricity and water and destroys the environment and all sorts of mean, nasty, ugly things. We're seeing pushback on that too, though, like from Christian Josie, who posted a great PJ Media article in favor of progress and humanity and against the Neo-Luddites. After a couple of paragraphs basically gushing over how wonderful the government is for the things he wants it to do, he nevertheless gave a good response to all the fear-mongering. Quote, "Let me be clear. I'm not buying any of it. It's all just part of the media's efforts to catastrophize every piece of news and spin everyone up over anything that's different or changing. It's no different than all of the press 30 years ago about the dangers of the internet and the Y2K disaster that never materialized. So yes, data centers are going to use a lot of electricity, they will need water to cool their facilities, and their footprint will grow across the nation. That's called progress. Yes, sometimes progress has risks, but those risks are mitigated as industries mature. I see no reason why the data center industry is any different, or why we should hold them to a higher standard than any other industry. And he went into ways AI is going to make our lives immeasurably better. Quote, for example, AI is going to let doctors quickly diagnose people with terrible conditions. Ever known someone who takes years to get a correct diagnosis and treatment for an illness? It's an awful existence, and we should all be looking forward to when AI can reduce the number of people suffering from not knowing what is making them sick and what can be done to ease their discomfort. But as he points out, the benefits of new technologies are always the things we can't predict. And that comes on top of a Yale study which shows that, unlike what the doomsayers fearmonger, AI has had zero effect on jobs so far. Quote, overall, our metrics indicate that the broader labor market has not experienced a discernible disruption since ChatGPT's release 33 months ago, undercutting fears that AI automation is currently eroding the demand for cognitive labor across the economy. They showed that the United Nations International Labor Organization was right back in 2023 when they predicted the generative AI would probably not replace most workers. That's also confirmed by a Danish study from April, as well as a working paper from NBER back in February. But that doesn't stop a lot of idiots, especially the ones at the idiot capital of the world, Hollywood. They've got all their panties in a bunch over the unveiling of Tilly Norwood, an AI-generated actress. Yes, the movie Simone is now reality. Actress Emily Blunt said, quote, I don't know how to quite answer it other than to say how terrifying this is. Good Lord, we're screwed. This is really, really scary. Come on, agencies, don't do that. Please stop. Please stop taking away our human connection. Sorry, who are you again? The Screen Actors Guild said in a statement, quote, Tilly Norwood is not an actor. It's a character generated by a computer program that was trained on the work of countless professional performers without permission or compensation. It has no life experience to draw from, no emotion, and from what we've seen, audiences aren't interested in watching computer-generated content untethered from the human experience. It doesn't solve any problem. It creates the problem of using stolen performances to put actors out of work, jeopardizing performer livelihoods and devaluing human artistry. Wait, if audiences aren't interested in it, then how would it put actors out of work? Come on! They said the same thing about Gollum! All of this is just to show what a spectrum of hysteria the anti-AI movement is, but overall, they're regressive, narcissistic, and just plain wrong. So all of that makes basically everyone in the anti-AI movement this week's Idiot Extraordinaire! Well, that wraps up this How Many Times Have I Told You to Stay Out of My Clothes edition of the Bogosity podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at the Discord, Patreon, or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Arthur C. Clarke. It may be that our role on this planet is not to worship God, but to create Him. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Bogosity.